Hey guys, it's Brielle and I am a professional dog trainer and a licensed canine behaviorist, and today I wanted to give you guys 10 reasons why you should not consider a service dog. So obviously, like, if you genuinely need a service dog and none of these reasons apply to you, then of course you should get one. I myself have a multi-purpose service dog named Arlo. He's a standard poodle. I'll include a picture here. But I did want to kind of go over a couple different reasons why when clients come to me and say, hey, I want a service dog, these are some of the things that I usually bring up and say, like, hey, maybe consider this. Like, think about maybe the fact that you might not want one because of this reason, or this reason, like for whatever reason. And these are just 10 different reasons. There are tons of reasons why you should not consider a service dog for yourself. There's obviously very differing reasons for different parties, but these are just 10 of the top most common reasons that I usually tell people who come into my program and say, like, hey, I'm looking to get a service dog. Just a reminder that service dogs are task-trained working dogs that are considered medical equipment by the United States government and are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Basically, they're trained for people with disabilities to help them with their conditions. So they have at least one or more tasks, and they are trained and under control in public. I will include a photo of the definition of a service dog here, just to kind of refresh your guys' memories before we go into this list. I'm sure that if you watch my channel, maybe you have like some sort of idea of the definition, but there might be some people who are new here. So just a reminder, you can hit that subscribe button down below to see more content just like this. So let's start with reason number one. Reason number one is kind of obvious. If you don't connect with dogs, I would not suggest you get a service dog. It's very similar to, you know, some people, like, they, you know, I would not suggest someone get an emotional support animal that's a cat if they don't connect with cats, because that animal's not going to be very helpful to you. I would say this especially matters for people with psychiatric disabilities. And then you see people with children who are afraid of dogs training service dogs for them. And these are like 5 or 6-year-old children, and their parents are like forcing them to handle this dog when the kid is obviously afraid of dogs. It's like you have to deal with that issue first and see if that kid even connects with dogs. Because if they don't, it's not going to be very helpful to them at all with their disability, because they will resent the dog, they will not like the dog, they will not want to have the dog help them, those sorts of things. You will find it more stressful when the dog helps you. You won't feel like any calming feeling, which is part of the reason people have service dogs, is the psychiatric benefits. So if you do not connect with dogs, if you're more of a cat person but you're still okay with dogs or something like that, then maybe that's different. But let's say that you are genuinely afraid of dogs, okay? Let's say, like, maybe you were attacked when you were a child or something along those lines. I would not recommend a service dog for you. Reason number two, if you have social anxiety or if you are not okay with getting a lot of attention when you're in public. Now, I know I'm going to get a little bit of some keyboard warriors in the comments down below. Oh my gosh, I've never used that phrase. Well, that's okay. I'm gonna get some hate down in the comments about this one, because I know there's a lot of people who have service dogs that, like, maybe their main disabling condition is social anxiety or something similar to that. However, when a client comes to me and they say, I have severe social anxiety, I feel very uncomfortable when I'm in public, I have agoraphobia, things like that, I usually will not recommend a service dog for them, because that person doesn't want, in most cases, that person doesn't want more attention on them when they're in public. So walking around with a dog, you guys might not know this if you're not service dog handlers, but when you are a service dog handler and you're walking around with a dog in a place that normally doesn't allow dogs, you're going to get more attention. from people walking around shopping, from children especially, from dog lovers, people who are afraid of dogs, people who think that you're training them for a veteran or something. That happens very often, way more often than you might think. And if you don't like that kind of extra attention that you're definitely going to get with a service dog, then I wouldn't recommend one to you, because it won't be helpful, because of the same one as the, not connecting with dogs. You're going to have those similar feelings of resentment, not wanting to be around the dog, not wanting to take the dog out, and thus not using it, because you get that extra attention when you're in public. And with someone with social anxiety, you might not want that. Now, I will say, though, that there are some people who have social anxiety. I have social anxiety, but I have other conditions that are, I would say, my more disabling conditions. So when people ask me what, my disability is, usually I'll say Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, because that's my most disabling condition. My social anxiety is basically trumped by my other disabilities. I need a service dog for my other disabilities, and there isn't something that works for me for those other disabilities aside from a service dog. My social anxiety is more related to the autism Asperger's aspect. So there are ways to get around it. So let's say if somebody has social anxiety but they really want a service dog and they think they can get over that extra attention sort of thing, then that's something you can kind of talk about. But if that's your main disabling condition, I would not really recommend it. Number 3, financial needs. Service dogs are not just a lot of work, which we'll talk about later, but they're also very, very expensive. So if you own or train, that's great. It is cheaper, but it does mean that, number 1, it's more likely to take longer. Number 2, you are more likely to have a wash, meaning that the dog has to stop working early because they are not fit for service work. And number 3, you're more likely to have a dog that is less stable in public. So even if they don't wash, even if the owner decides, well, I think they're fine, professionals or other people might be like, well, actually, here's a bunch of issues. And, if you take your dog out in public, these are some things that could happen. Even with owner training, food is really expensive. Things like gear, that if you need mobility, you will need that gear because certain harnesses you have to have in order to do mobility. But if you're just doing other things, it's much safer to have gear and have your dog marked. Dog licensing is supposed to be free for people with service dogs, but there are some people who might not know that. So if, and I think the laws might actually differ in different states. I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong on that. But I know in my state it's free. But that could be expensive, or people might forget or something. Things like paying for toys, paying for treats, paying for leashes and treat pouches and brushes and shampoo and conditioner and grooming and baths, oh my gosh, and beds and crates, and oh my god, it gets really expensive really fast. It builds up really fast. And then if we're talking about bringing a puppy into your home, that puppy's gonna break some shit, and there's gonna be pee on stuff and poop on stuff, and you're gonna have to replace things. I'm sorry, but it's true. They're gonna chew things up. So it gets expensive pretty fast. If you are not someone that has the financial ability to have a service dog, I would not recommend getting one. Now, there are things people do to get around this one as well. Some people will have fundraisers to help fundraise for a program dog. Now, I have mixed opinions on this, and I'll tell you guys why. People who have fundraisers to get a service dog, that means that usually they won't be able to afford other things. So let's say that their dog has an emergency surgery that they need, and that's going to be a pretty big cost. That person, if they're in the same income situation they were when they needed to fundraise to get the dog, I guess I don't really understand how they would be able to afford an emergency surgery. And I'm of the opinion that if you do not have money set aside for your dog in terms of an emergency, or you do not have a backup plan, then you should not have a dog. If you're not ready and prepared to pay for that kind of stuff, you should not have a dog. I personally have a savings account, and at any point I will drop anything and drain my savings to pay for anything that Arlo needs. I know that a lot of handlers have the same thing, or they have pet insurance which will cover it. My work has pet insurance, but that only covers Arlo when he's at my program dog training job. So I can understand fundraising for, like, let's say like you're getting a program dog, and so you're gonna get a fully trained dog if you get a dog from a program. If you're getting a dog from a program and it's like already fully trained, and so it's like, I don't know, $10,000-$20,000, okay, that's a big amount of money. I can understand fundraising for that, like at least for part of it. You know, like let's say you have some money saved up, or you're gonna pay for some of it, but you need to fundraise for some of it, and then, you know, you like have a job, so you're gonna be able to pay for it after the dog gets there, but that first cost is really expensive. Okay. Editing Brielle here. I had to cut this section because the sound didn't sound good, but basically what I said was, I understand having to fundraise the startup cost of a dog. Like you have to fundraise for, you know, a board and train, or maybe you have to fundraise for like the adoption fee. But if you have to fundraise for like everything that goes on, like if you have to fundraise for training kind of all the time, or if you have to fundraise for like food costs all the time or gear costs, that's a little concerning, at least in my mind, because that makes me think that like if there was a veterinary emergency or something, you wouldn't be able to afford it. And maybe like your financial situation is not at a point where you should be getting a service dog and taking on that responsibility of like caring for another life. Now, I'm not trying to judge people. If you want to like let me know down in the comments like your situation is different or whatever, I totally believe you. However, that's just been my experience in the past, is that I've had some clients who have fundraised for puppies from breeders that were only like $1,000. And then after that, they didn't have money to pay for training, so they, you know, basically didn't train their dog. And then they didn't have money to pay for gear, they didn't have money to pay for food, everything was like well, I didn't know it was going to cost this much. Well, it does. It's very expensive. If you look up the cost, I will put the cost here, like the average yearly cost of having a dog. It's probably a lot more for service dogs. I guarantee it is, because you have to pay for training, first of all, if you're going to go to a professional trainer, which you definitely should, and you have to pay for gear and all that extra things that normal pets don't have to pay for. That was kind of a rant, but that's kind of a big one. The money is very important because that dog is a living being. You have to care for that dog. That dog's needs need to come first. So if you need a service dog but you can't afford it, that means you cannot get a service dog. Period. Point blank. End of discussion on that. Number 4, this is also going to be kind of a tough one. If your home life is unstable in terms of like where you live. So let's say you're moving a lot because your parents are moving jobs, or your parents don't have jobs, or let's say you don't have a job and you're moving a lot, or you're couch surfing, or maybe you're homeless. Whatever the situation is, maybe that time is not the best time to consider a service dog. When you're getting a service dog, they need to be brought into a house, especially if it's going to be a puppy that you're training or that you're getting a professional trainer for. They need to be in a very stable environment in order to learn how to be a dog, basically. And in order for that to happen, they can't be moving around all the time. They can't be around highly negative energy. They can't be around that kind of stuff. It's going to be very volatile and very not good for them learning. And the other thing is everyone in the household needs to be on board. So if other people who live in your household are abusive and maybe not gonna stick with it, that's not a good idea. And this goes for having pets too, is if you have a pet and you're bringing that animal into an unstable household, it's not safe. It's like bringing a child into an unstable household. You really don't want to do that. And puppies, they need safety and they need security. So if you are not ready to provide that at this given time, maybe this isn't the best time for you to get a service dog. And this one's maybe one of the hardest ones, because I have had a couple people tell me that, oh, well, you know, I'm homeless and I don't have a job, but if I had a service dog, I for sure would be able to get a job, because then all my needs would be met and I would be accommodated at work. And it's like, well, that would be like would you want to put another being in the same situation you're in? another animal, you know, because humans are animals, would you want to put another animal in the same situation you're in, where you're homeless, you're not sure where you're going to sleep, you're not sure what you're going to eat, you don't have money coming in, that kind of stuff? Would you want to put another animal in that situation? And usually they say no. So obviously at my program, we have resources. We try and get people, you know, resources to help them kind of get on their feet so that if they are disabled and do need a service dog, they can get a job and get things sort of the ball rolling into getting them into a stable environment where they can take one in, if that's the only problem, like the only barrier between them getting a service dog. That one's kind of hard to talk about, I know. If you have a story that's similar, share it down in the comments below. Number 5, this one's a little bit easier for people to understand and talk about. If you have animals that are not dog friendly, I would not recommend a service dog. So let's say you have a family dog that is dog aggressive. Probably shouldn't bring in another dog, especially a dog that is going to end up being considered like expensive because they have all this training and stuff like that. You wouldn't want to bring that dog into that household. If you have, like, let's say you've got cats that are very afraid of dogs, probably not a good idea. If the dog you're looking at is, like, you know, not friendly with whatever animal you have, like let's say the dog you're looking at is dog aggressive, definitely should not get that dog for service work, period. But, you know, or let's say that the dog has high prey drive and you're like, oh, I can train that out of the dog before service work, but you also have like cats and birds in your house, probably not a great idea. So I would just make sure that all of the animals that are coming into the house, including the prospective service dog, all mesh well. Number 6, if you aren't going to do temperament testing or doing the best you can to ensure the dog will work out and be safe working, you should not get a service dog. If you're going to go into the shelter and pick out the cutest dog you see and not do any further research, don't get a service dog, because that's not how you do it. All dogs need to be temperament tested to at least hopefully make the best guess that they're going to be okay for service work. And if they end up not being okay for service work, what are you going to do? You need to make that plan. If you're not getting a program dog, which, by the way, program dogs are probably the safest option for people. I will continue to recommend program dogs for the rest of my life because they are probably going to be the safest option. If the dog doesn't work out in your home, you can tell them, hey, this didn't work out, and they have to help you fix it. So that's my best, you know, advice that I can give you. But if you can't afford it, or if that doesn't work for your situation for whatever reason, understandable. However, you have like a couple other things you have to consider. So I would say that this is maybe the worst case scenario for shelter dogs, and maybe more common for shelter dogs, because when we're talking about purebred dogs, they know the temperaments of the parents, they've had the puppies their whole lives, they, you know, we're talking about like dogs from reputable breeders. That's maybe like your second best option after program dogs, is a dog from a reputable breeder and professional training. But again, you still need to do temperament testing. So my recommendation is you bring in an outside professional trainer that has no connection to the breeder. And you let the person, you know, you have an honest conversation with them about the fact that you need a service dog, and the trainer will do temperament testing on the puppies you're looking at. And they can do that with a breeder, they can do it at the shelter, wherever. They usually, professional trainers are pretty good about doing temperament testing with almost any dog, as long as it's, you know, safe, obviously, and if it's not safe, you shouldn't even be considering it. So they will do that temperament testing to hopefully make the best guess that that dog is going to turn out as an okay service dog prospect. After that, the next thing that you want to consider is if you need mobility or something like that, you need to be sure that the dog that you're getting is safe enough to perform mobility. If you are adopting a dog that is overweight or underweight, if you're adopting a dog that has health problems, if you're adopting a dog that is too small naturally or too, you know, whatever, for that type of work that you need, then you need to reconsider. Need before breed. I understand that there's a bunch of people out there who are like, oh my gosh, Belgian Malinois are so beautiful and they're so fun and they're so cool. Like, all my people out there who have Belgian Malinois are so cool and like I want to be cool like them. Yeah, well, Belgian Malinois are a lot of work, and if you are disabled, then it's pretty difficult to care for them, so not my suggestion. My main suggestion is going with a Labrador Retriever or a Golden Retriever. These are the two best choices for service work. Hands down, end of discussion. Like, I will not change my mind on that. You can't change my mind. Poodles are great. However, I would not recommend them for service work. Maybe I'll make another video on that. If you want to see that video, put a comment down below, like this video or something, and maybe I'll do it in the future. But those are the two breeds I would recommend if you're able to go with a purebred dog from a breeder, from a reputable breeder, because they are usually large enough to do mobility, and make sure that you are getting vet testing on these dogs as well. We'll talk about that. They're usually large enough, they're very smart, they're caring, they like to please their owner, that kind of stuff. Maybe I'll eventually do a video on the best breeds for service work, who knows. You really want to get health testing on these dogs to be sure that they are going to be able to do the type of work you need them to do. And if they have any underlying health issues, then technically they're not covered by the ADA, because the ADA requires that service dogs be healthy. So if they have health issues, or if they're underweight or overweight, or, you know, for whatever reason, they can't be a service dog. So it's really important that you are doing your due diligence and temperament testing and health testing these dogs. Number 7, if your family is not supportive of you getting a service dog, and you like have a relationship with your family, I would not suggest getting a service dog, because it's really difficult, and that's coming from somebody who, my stepdad originally was not supportive of me getting a service dog. I don't really talk about it that much because it's, you know, it's mostly been worked out, but originally my stepdad was not supportive of me getting a service dog because he was afraid of dogs, and it was really difficult. We got through it, and, you know, we worked it out, and our system works great, but it's not comfortable, it's not fun. If your family is unsupportive, it is best for you to not get a service dog, because your family will, you know, make comments, they will judge you. It's not fun. Luckily, I did not go through that necessarily that bad, but basically the need for family support and the need for the support of, especially if you are like a child, if you're underage and you're living in your parents' household and your parents do not support you getting a service dog, obviously you just can't. But like, if one parent does and the other one doesn't, and that one parent's just like, okay, let's just get one then, that's not a good idea. You need to have both parents on the same page. You need to have everybody in the household on the same page about the dog. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a dog that behaves one way around one person and another way around another person, and if you're ever out working with those people, it's going to, you know, working the dog with those people, it's going to be really uncomfortable. So my suggestion would be to make sure you're having a conversation with your doctor and your family if they don't understand the need for the service dog, or, you know, resolve whatever issues they have, like why they're unsupportive. Like, maybe have them write like a list of the reasons why they don't think you should have one, and you can kind of go through that list. If you're living in a household with other people that are going to ruin your dog's training, then it's kind of pointless to train a dog, because those other people are going to ruin that dog's training. So again, you don't want to bring a being into an unstable or unhappy or unsupportive environment. Number 8, if you are disabled to the point where you cannot care for a dog physically, you should not get a service dog. So obviously, and I feel like this should go without saying, but I'm going to say it just in case. If the dog is a service dog for like a child and the parent is doing the main care, like let's say they're a service dog for something and the child is like physically unable to care for the service dog, but the parent is able to, and, you know, that sort of situation, then okay, that's different. And, you know, as the child gets older, that's going to be a different situation. But if you, like the handler and complete caregiver of the dog, cannot physically take care of a service dog, you should not get one. And there's a couple different reasons for this. Number one, there's a lot of things you should consider. You need to feed and water the dog every day. You need to make sure the dog is getting enough exercise to be able to maintain a fit body, healthy body in order to do work, especially if they're a mobility dog. If you cannot get the dog, like, you know, geared up and dressed or something like that, there's a couple different modifications you can make to gear in order to make sure that that's, like, able to be done. But, you know, different people need different things. So, physically, if you can't, like, exercise a dog, that's, like, the main thing that I usually think of. If you can't walk a dog at least once a day, or, like, play fetch, or, like, make sure that they're fit and healthy and, like, have some muscle in order to do work, I would not recommend getting a service dog. There's a couple people that you know, and the thing is like, this goes for mental illnesses too. Because let's say you genuinely just, like, you get so exhausted, or you have too much you need to be doing in a day, or something like that, you don't have the time, then okay, you don't have the time to physically exercise your service dog, then you shouldn't get one, because you don't have the time to do that. But most of the time, I think that, like, I've had a couple service dog handlers that were clients of mine that basically, one of them, she has cerebral palsy, and the way that she exercises with her dog is she has a chuck it, and she just plays fetch with her dog, like, and she has a dog exercise tracker, and, like, he gets good exercise, so she can do it. I don't know what everybody else's excuse is. Editing Brielle here again. Obviously you can tell that I did not film this video great. The other thing that I wanted to say regarding this point is, if you have a mental disability that basically keeps you from exercising your dog or feeding your dog or something, like, let's say there's days where you literally just cannot get out of bed, like, period, no matter what, for anything, like, to feed yourself and go to the bathroom, like, you can't, like, the depression is that bad, or your ADHD is so bad that you forget to feed your dog, like, consistently, or, like, you know, something like that. If that's a problem, then I would suggest talking to your doctors about, like, what you can do. But if you can't overcome that, like, if you can't, like, come up with a way that you'll, you know, that won't be a problem, then I would also suggest not getting a service dog for the same reason, because that being is a life that you have to take care of. And while that dog, you know, while that service dog will take care of you, you are also taking care of that dog, because without you, that dog cannot take care of itself. You are its main life source, so you have to, you know, act like it. Number 9, if you do not plan on using a professional trainer and you are not educated or experienced in dog training at, like, a service dog level, you know, like, you haven't ever trained a service dog or taken a class on how to train a service dog or anything like that, I would not recommend you get a service dog if you don't plan to get, like, a professional trainer or use a program. Because, and this one's gonna, okay, owner training is fine, alright? Owner training works for some people. However, owner training, when you have no experience or are not educated, can really ruin the community. People who think that, like, they trained their dog even though, like, the dog can't even sit, but, like, oh, I'll scratch on my arm and the dog will paw me, but the dog goes to the bathroom inside and is dog aggressive. But, like, I don't know how to train those things out. Yeah, because you're not experienced and educated. So if you do not have experience or education in the field, I personally don't think that you should be owner training, unless you are planning on getting that education and experience, or you're going to hire a professional trainer to help you. My best friend Michaela is a really good example. She did not have experience or education necessarily in like the service dog world before she got her service dog. However, she was working with a program originally, a training program, and then that didn't really work out. I started training with her. However, I don't do like board and trains with her dog or anything. I meet with her once a week, and she does 2 solo sessions on her own, and then she asks me questions when she has them. I consider it training the team, not necessarily just training the dog. Because when you're training the team, if I tell her something, she will know how to retrain it later if she needs to. If something happens and maybe Toby like completely forgets how to do emergency stops, she knows how to like reset that and like redo it again. I think that it's really important that everyone have that resource. I think owner training is a really big argument in the community about who should be able to owner train, and that's my opinion. It's just that if you don't have experience or education in the field, I don't think that owner training should necessarily be an option because of the fact that we do have so many fake service dogs going out there every single day, and those people think that they owner trained their service dog. So they think they followed the law, but they didn't. And it's difficult. So, if you don't plan on getting experience or education yourself or hiring a professional trainer, then don't get the service dog unless it's a program dog. Number 10, the top reason why you should not get a service dog. You guys ready? I bet you've never heard this one before. It is new information. And yes, I have had clients come in here and ask me for a service dog when this was like a #1 thing that they were struggling with. They are not disabled, so they cannot have a service dog. It is illegal, queen. If you are not disabled, you do not qualify for a service dog. That one's pretty self-explanatory. If you're not disabled, you can't get a service dog because you're not protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act because you're not an American with disabilities. You might be an American, but you don't have any disabilities. So, sorry, queen. If you're not disabled, you don't qualify for a service dog or an emotional support animal, so that's not even in the question either. Even if you trained a dog, even if you trained the dog to meet all of the ADA standards, like, you know, being calm in public and controlled, and maybe they even, like, I don't know, they do a task, like they open a door. Even like if you don't need help with that or something, like they open a door or something, still it's not a service dog because you're not disabled, so they can't mitigate one of your disabilities that doesn't exist. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that kind of a little bit off the wall, sometimes ranty video about the top 10 reasons that you should not get a service dog. Obviously this was all in good fun. If you need a service dog and these are not things that you struggle with, then of course I support you in getting a service dog. And if you have any questions and you need help with anything, my email is always down below in the description. I answer training questions whenever I get them in, or I answer every single comment that's left in the comment sections of my videos, so you can leave one down below as well. If you liked this video and you thought it was funny and want me to do more stuff like this, please leave a like down below. And subscribe to my channel to see more similar or not similar content. I do both. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will see you guys in whatever I make next. Bye. I don't know what I'm doing.